What were you thinking about Frank, Ryan?
Oh, the kind of thing I sometimes let myself get into when I'm tired. We were never together as much as we wanted to be, so we got into the habit of saving things up to tell one another. And I guess it's a habit that I haven't managed to break yet.
Do you mind talking about this?
Do you? No, I don't think so. And you've certainly shared a lot of your personal feelings with me.
Well, I'm afraid we're going to be stuck here for a little while, so as long as he's on your mind, will you tell me about you and Frank?
Frank and me. Well, I guess it all started that first night he walked into my classroom. There I was, lecturing a room full of law students, and every time that I looked his way, he was smiling at me, as if we had some private secret going. So finally I decided, okay, I'm going to ask him some questions to make sure he's listening to me.
And let him know his boss.
And to keep from bursting out laughing. Anyway, that was the first of many, many happy times for us.
You two knew each other as kids, didn't you?
Oh, sure, but not that well. You see, we'd both gone in entirely different directions. I'd gone off to school, and then I was hard at work. And Frank joined the police force, and then he married Dee.
Happily?
Not really. At least not once he started law school.
Must have been very odd, having someone you played with as a child suddenly become your student.
Kind of. But I was actually more his professor than his friend, although that got turned around very quickly. I used to give him rides home, and we would talk about the law and everything else under the sun. And we always laughed at the same things. And then, I don't know, before we knew it, quite unexpectedly, we were having this perfectly wonderful love affair.
And Delia?
Delia. It's strange, but I never really thought that much about her at first. Frank and I, we just had something so private it never seemed to touch his marriage. And I liked it that way. And for a long, long time, I was very contented.
What happened?
Dee got pregnant. I didn't know it at the time, but she had found out about Frank and myself. I think she deliberately had the baby to win him back. And it worked.
He stopped seeing you?
Well, actually, I sent him back to her. I knew how much he wanted a child and a good, stable home for him. So, that was the end of the affair. Or the first stage of it, anyway. I just didn't realize that I would miss him so much.
But you did.
Something fierce.
When did the second stage start?
Oh, months later. I mean, after the baby. Frank saw me reading in the park one day, and he came over to say hello. I asked him how he was, and he said fine. But he looked perfectly miserable. And then, not too long after that, he called me. And then we were together again. And then we discovered that we really loved each other very much.
You hadn't before?
We hadn't been aware of it before. So we started figuring out ways to find more time for each other. That was last spring and early summer. And then, of course, Frank had the accident.
I visited him in the hospital every day. I thought you were such a devoted friend.
Yeah, a lot of people noticed that. Roger, for one. He told Nick Szabo. Nick Szabo threatened to tell the world. That wasn't the sort of publicity that an ambitious young city councilman needs.
Did he consider a divorce, or would that have been political suicide? I'm sorry. I guess I'm beginning to pry.
No, Seneca, it wasn't that. I was thinking, if the district leaders had found out about Frank, they would have forced him to resign if there had been a scandal. But you see, he was ready for that. The real stumbling block, and the thing that I hadn't realized until the very end, was Frank's feelings about marriage. I mean, once he took those vows and put that ring on Dee's finger, and that union was blessed by God, that was it. I mean, he could have gotten a dozen divorces, and nothing would have changed that. In his soul, Frank was married to Dee.
It only happens once, and it lasts until death.
That's right.
Sorry. Has talking about this made you sad?
No. No, not really. I mean, it really feels good to share it with somebody. You see, I've only talked to my family about it, or Frank's family. But never just to a friend. A friend who would listen, without criticisms and corrections and hurt feelings.
Well, in that case, can I ask you one more question?
Okay, fire away.
Now, Frank's been out of your life for what, 6 months or more. Are you still in love with him?